Session of part-time managers had struggled against a lack of resources, lack of access to UK-based players, and a sheer lack of organisation and support from the FAI. For the 5 years before Charlton's appointment, the man trying to climb that mountain was Limerick United's league and cup-winning manager, Eoin.
When you ask me questions about, was it Jack Charlton started it all? No, it wasn't. I did my bit. And John Giles had a huge contribution before that. Liam Toohey before that. It was progression all the time.
Managers like Hand and Giles before him did have one stroke of luck. FIFA had introduced the grandparent rule way back in 1965, but by the 70s and early 80s, the sons and daughters of McAlpine's Fusiliers, that last great wave of Irish emigration to Britain, were starting to come of age.
We were starting to develop a deeper pool of talent.
Eoin had introduced the likes of Cascarino. He'd introduced Mick McCarthy to international football.
Players like Chris Hughton-Image and Tony Galvin.
He'd done a lot, in fact, in bringing players into the Irish setup to try and improve and bring on the Irish team.
I'm growing up in a school in Barnsley, then in Worsborough Bridge, with the Keatons, the McNicholases, the Foxes, the McCarthys, the McHughes. They're all Irish immigrants' children. I remember vividly asking my dad, am I Irish, am I English? And his answer was, you're half and half.
I'm 18, I'm playing in the old third division with Preston North End, my sort of hometown club and everything. I thought, well, I'm never going to be good enough to go and play for England, so I just jumped at the chance. I flew on the Saturday night from Liverpool, played the next day at Dalymount against Poland. I know lots of people say about, the anthem, and I didn't know which one was, I didn't know. I didn't know which was our anthem, which was the Polish anthem, and, you just had to cough and go, I ain't got a clue.
This Mark Lawrenson, very cool in the heart of the defence.
Ireland's poor form, especially away from home, wasn't always down to the players. Back then, like now, the team relied on the organisational skills of the FAI, who over the course of their history hadn't always been up to the job.
It was an end-of-season game in Poland. It was in Bydgoszcz, where the strikes had started. And what happened was we flew to Warsaw, and we had a 5-hour bus journey. And we got to Bydgoszcz, and there was basically no food. And they were queuing for bread in the street and all that. It sounds a bit drastic, but that's exactly the way it was. And we stayed in this hotel, and the officials turned up on the day to watch the game. And then they scarpered back to Warsaw and just sort of left us. We had to stay another night, overnight in Bydgoszcz. And we got the Rattler back in like another 5 or 6 hours the next day.
I'll never forget, my wife went out to Moscow. She was the chef when we played the USSR. And I did that to embarrass my bosses because I thought that would prompt them to say, OK, we'll get a chef. They said, oh, that's good. So my wife came and she was the chef out in Moscow. It was so slapstick.
The people who were running the FAI here were amateurs. They weren't in the professional game. They weren't under scrutiny week in, week out, how they organised things, whether it was a hotel or travel, it was, it'll do.
Many of the clubs were very reluctant to release their players because of that amateurish approach to the preparations for the games, to the organisation before the games, which wasn't of the standard that they would have liked to have.
There was shambolic things, definitely, but there was an awful lot of good people too, which I felt sorry for. And they felt sorry for me, because they could see what you were trying to do.
Despite all the disorganisation behind the scenes, Ireland were heading into the campaign for the 1982 World Cup with a strong squad and a real chance of qualifying.
We had a very good side and we were very attack conscious, and we got the blend right. I mean, the likes of Lawrence and Brady, Stapleton, O'Leary, they were all guys at their prime.
We got off to a very good start in a very difficult group.
We had a great victory at home to France 3-2.
Platini would have been playing. I think little Giresse, midfield play, they were top team. But we came up with some fantastic results at home, but away we were a bit sort of ragtag and bobtail, I'm afraid. That sort of just lack of a bit of organisation, which cost us.
A result away to Belgium would pretty much guarantee a World Cup place for the first time.
Again, some strange decisions.
We had a perfect good goal disallowed. The linesman had his flag down and the referee was looking goal, and then suddenly the linesman put the flag up. And then, of course, they got the winner near the end. And we were devastated because we knew that point would have actually put us to Spain for the World Cup. And it would have been huge for our good players. And they were going to lose out because of cheating that went on.
We only missed out by a whisker. I think Belgium topped the group and we were equal second with France, but we lost out on goal difference.
As a consolation, the FAI organised a tour to South America to face Brazil and Argentina, which Britain was in the middle of a war with.
I'll never forget saying, look, we can't get players against Argentina. I mean, drop the Argentina game. But I was told, look, you're not a politician, you're a football manager. So I went across to Atkinson. Can I say on air what he said back to me? He said, fuck off. And I said, is that your official response, Ron? He said, yeah. I said, okay. So I went down to Keith Birkinshaw, Tottenham, with two lads there. And that's comical, I think it was what he said.
Bob Paisley called me, Ronnie and Jim Beglin in and said, look, it's a long way to Brazil. Do you really want to go? And I said, well, we promised Owen. He said, don't worry, I'll sort it with Owen. Well, he didn't really sort it with Owen. He just said we were injured.
So I went back and I said, we can't get a team. Then they dropped the Argentina game. But then the damage was done.
So we went on that tour and it was a complete disaster. We lost 7-0 against a great Brazilian team and we even got beat by Trinidad and Tobago.
Robbed of a World Cup place, humbled by the mighty Brazil, and humiliated by Trinidad and Tobago, the Republic of Ireland was going to have to face up to the fact that it was just a footballing minnow. Even with world-class players like Brady, Lawrenson and Whelan, maybe a small nation could never expect to qualify for a World Cup. Well, in the 1980s, that argument seemed a little ropey when Northern Ireland made it to 2 World Cup finals in a row.
Spain will start from left to right. The referee, Hector Ortiz Ramirez from Paraguay.
They had at that time a good mix of experience and talent. And in Billy Bingham, an astute manager. And that was enough to get them through.
In 1982, with less than half the population of the Republic, and with Norman Whiteside as the youngest player to ever grace a World Cup, Northern Ireland didn't just quietly show up in Spain. They beat the hosts and topped their group.
I remember I was in the house and my father and my grandfather told me were jumping around, cheering and shouting. I said, "Jeez, what's going on?" I said, "Oh, Jerry Armstrong has scored for Northern Ireland. They're beating Spain." And I was completely confused because I was like, "But I thought we weren't supposed to be cheering when that happens."
At the time, there's a great deal of enthusiasm in the Republic for Northern Ireland's success. And the Sinn Féin newspaper on Fublock comes out and essentially argues that this is a good thing. That despite almost tongue-in-cheek saying this is a state which we don't officially recognise, this is a team that's an Irish team. Some of its heroes include Jerry Armstrong, for example, from the Falls Road, and that there's nothing at all wrong with supporting Northern Ireland.
While Northern Ireland basked in the glory of Spain and reached Mexico 4 years later, the Republic performed dismally. Hand, the highly respected League of Ireland man, had lost his sparkle.
Some people said that because he had never played with one of the bigger clubs in Britain, that he lacked the kind of stature to handle people like Liam Brady and Frank Stable.
Owen was a great guy and really passionate about the game, and he did his utmost, but I don't think he had the presence to stand up to some of the decisions that the FAI made.
Owen Hand's reign ended in a dejected and semi-deserted Lansdowne Road.
It was a shambles. They'd lost the match to Denmark heavily, 4-1 I think was the result. They were slaughtered. And that was the end of Owen Hand.
That match in 1985 against Denmark wasn't just the end of another manager.